You are looking, as we said there, at a shot of Bank Street in Ottawa near Parliament Hill, but the area in front of Parliament Hill has now been essentially cleared by police. Certainly protesters are gone, and you can see there now on the right of your screen some tow trucks still coming in and pulling out the many, many big rigs that had been in front of Parliament Hill now for going on 3 weeks. Police have successfully secured a large area of the downtown core that they are calling now the red zone, the secured space. Every time protesters are pushed back, barricades go up to keep that space. We know today at least 47 people were arrested. The police told us that earlier, bringing the two-day total up to at least 170. Ottawa's interim chief of police, Steve Bell, spoke earlier about how much longer that operation could go on.
We won't commit to any end time because the progress of it needs to be measured, needs to be methodical, needs to be safe and lawful, as we've indicated all the way through. That is how we've approached this protest since we've started. That is how we will approach it until it's completed. I cannot overstate. We are in this until it is over.
Thank you for joining us here on CBC Television, CBC Gem and CBC News Network. We are bringing you special coverage at this hour of police action in the nation's capital after a blockade, a convoy had taken over the downtown core of Ottawa for going on 3 weeks. Ashley Burke has been reporting from those areas over the course of those 3 weeks and inside the red zone today. She's also been following police updates. Ashley, we're here to heard a little bit there from the interim police. You seem to be in an area that is pretty quiet compared to how it was earlier today. Tell us where you are, how it has changed.
Rosie, we are just a block from where David Common is, just behind me there. And, you know, look at the difference here. This is one of the areas that police have reclaimed. And just take a look at this. You can see this fencing that they are installing to keep demonstrators out. This is tall fencing, and also this police vehicle right here to block this from anyone entering this area. That's what police have been doing throughout the day, pushing protesters back and then securing areas, bringing in that line, like you mentioned, of tow trucks and cleaning out any of cars, towing any of those vehicles that are still here. Just behind us, this is Parliament Hill, this is Wellington Street, one of the areas that was jam-packed with vehicles, just days ago. And look at, they are all gone. We saw droves of trucks leaving today. Some of them essentially had a farewell parade. They were doing donuts in the street. There was smoke spitting up, and there were people screaming and cheering for them as they took off. So we have seen a lot of vehicles leave, and now this area, the secure, looks like this. As you mentioned, Ottawa's interim police chief gave an update today. He said this has been methodical and that everything to date has gone exactly as they planned. But it's clear not everyone feels that way, because Ottawa police tonight tweeted to tell people to stop calling 911, to stop calling their emergency lines, and complaining about how police are handling this matter. They have been inundated with complaints tying up those key lines there. We've also seen gates of, look, that's probably some more gear that they're bringing in to close off this area. The other thing we heard from the interim police chief was a defense of some of the methods that they used today. They said they had warned if people did not leave that they were going to escalate their methods. So as you mentioned, we saw police carrying batons today. We saw them wearing helmets. We personally saw a series of people being sprayed with pepper spray today and heading into snowbanks just down the street from here and rubbing their eyes in snowbanks to try and get it to clear their eyes. So a lot of people in that area just a block away, that was happening too today, and a lot of complaints from protesters about that. But the police said, look, demonstrators, they threw gas at them, they were being volatile, and that those are the tactics they had to use to protect themselves. Another thing we heard from police today is that you might see them around here with cameras up. They are filming demonstrators, and even those that leave, they are opening investigations, and they say they're going to track people down, and they will be laying arrests later, even after demonstrators clear out of this area.
Okay, I mean, just so viewers really understand, let me just reiterate what you said off the top, Ashley. You are a mere block away from where David Common was just now, and a block away from the picture that we're seeing on the right of our screen. So things have been squeezed down pretty intensely, and much of the core, as you said, where people were set up, has been cleared. The police chief said that they're not going to stop until all neighborhoods in the city are clear of protesters. We know, for instance, that there are locations where they've set up sort of encampments further away from downtown. Give us a sense of what they've said about that and how this goes forward in the days ahead.
Well, they've really been pushing people today down Wellington Street, that street behind us, all the way down to where David Common is, and letting people have an exit route. Some of these side streets, like the one I'm standing on right now, was one of the routes they allowed people to leave on today. So they are letting people exit on some of these more residential streets as they clear out the main areas, and they said that's been their priority today. And getting the trucks out of some of these spots near us. There are still streets where there are trucks lined up that they have not cleared out yet. So Ottawa's interim police chief said the priority right now is really securing and clearing these streets. And also, they said they had to do repairs to get these streets back to what they looked like before, because as you remember, there were tents set up, and they say there's been some damage to some of the property around here as well.
Okay, Ashley Burke, she is also inside the red zone right now and has been helping with the coverage over the past 3 weeks and again tonight. Thank you, Ashley. We'll come back to you. I should let you know as well that in order to get into that area where Ashley is, you do have to go through a number of police checks and prove why you're going into that area and what you're set to do. It can be a tedious exercise, but one that is necessary given what police want to do with that secured area. Again, the CBC building, Parliament Hill, and where Ashley was, all inside of there. I want to bring in Wesley Wark now. He is in the nation's capital too. He's a national security expert and senior fellow with the Centre for International Governance and Innovation. Nice to see you this evening, Mr. Wark.
Hello, Rosemary. Nice to see you.
So as all this is happening, of course, inside Parliament, inside the House of Commons, there is a really important debate happening around the Emergencies Act, a measure that has never been used by any government until now. And the debate is important because it is there that the government has to sort of make the case for why it is needed and explain the legal bar or the legal criteria that it used to invoke this. I know you have strong opinions on the Emergencies Act, and I wonder, given what you've seen over the past couple of days, whether you think it was the answer.
Yes, I mean, I think, Rosemary, Canadians are going to judge the use by the federal government of the Emergencies Act on two grounds. One is, it is a means to an end. Is it going to be an effective means to an end in terms of bringing this protest movement to a close? And I must say, it's one good sign that the space in front of Parliament Hill has been closed, has been cleaned out, so that Parliament can continue this important debate. The other issue is going to be, well, was it the appropriate legal tool to use? And that's a debate that's happening at the moment in Parliament. And it's a critical debate because in the terms of the Emergencies Act, Parliament has to agree that it should be invoked and continued, or it can simply bring the Emergencies Act to an end. So the federal government has really staked its action with regard to ending this protest on getting parliamentary assent, and that debate is going forward, as you know.
We could get to the space, though, I think, given the way things are unfolding, where when the vote happens on Monday night, things will be mostly cleared up in this city. It does look like they will get support anyway from the NDP. But it does seem as though the bringing together of various police forces from across the country has been a pretty important part of this, and that was done, I believe, under the Emergencies Act. So was that enough of a reason to do this, do you think?
Well, there are two thresholds that have to be met in the Emergencies Act, not to dive too deeply into the law, but one is the government has to prove that this is a national emergency. And I think that is clearly the case. And a national emergency has to be something that's beyond the capacity or authority of a single province to deal with. And, one of the things that we've seen throughout this crisis has been that other levels of government, whether it was the City of Ottawa or the provincial government, both of whom declared their own Emergencies Act, were pretty ineffective in dealing with the Act. The Emergencies Act does give the federal government some very specific tools, which it's used, but it also needs to be said the Emergencies Act is an old piece of legislation. The good news is that it's never been used since 1988. The bad news is that it's old, and so the government has to, in a way, shoehorn the Emergencies Act from way back in 1988, 34 years ago, into contemporary circumstances. And just think in 1988, there were no social media platforms, there was no cryptocurrency. One of the key tools that they brought to bear are these financial weapons, frankly, which I think are a big threat and a major deterrence that has probably helped turn the tide quite apart from the ability the Emergencies Act has given them, in a couple of other practical ways. One is they were able to bring the RCMP and their resources to bear on the protest, because otherwise the RCMP had no real jurisdiction. And secondly, as you've seen and shown viewers, they could declare these protected areas, what the City of Ottawa police are calling red zones. There are more protected areas, no matter what happens with the downtown protests, that are going to have to be declared and cleared out, including the staging areas and support areas for the protest. And so, I think we'll see this going on. Hopefully downtown Ottawa will be reasonably quiet by Monday evening when the parliamentary vote takes place. But I think there'll be other action that will have to take place, certainly in other parts of Ottawa and possibly in other parts of the country.
Yeah, I mean, maybe all of this will at very least lead to a review or renewal of the Emergencies Act if needed going forward. Wesley Wark, thank you so much for your time and your expertise on this. Do appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Rosemary.
Wesley Wark, a national security expert. Let me show you again where we are here in the nation's capital. You're watching on CBC News Network, CBC Television, and CBC Gem. I'm Rosemary Barton. This is special coverage of police action here in Ottawa that has started, as you know, just yesterday, early in the morning, and continued on through the course of this day. This is a shot of Bank Street, looking up at a line in the far distance there of police who are holding many protesters still at that location. We should tell you, though, that Wellington Street, which had been the central point for this protest right in front of Parliament Hill, has been cleared out of protesters and of rigs, of the big trucks that were sitting there for going on 3 weeks. Our Evan Dyer joins us now. He's also been watching on the ground by Bank Street. In fact, corrected me when I misread where we were on our camera shots. Evan, tell us what's happening on the ground where you are.
Okay, so we're on Bank Street, and we're in between Queen Street and pedestrian street of Ottawa, Spark Street. This is right now where most of the action is happening, and there's a line of police, we believe RCMP, right across Spark Street there, which is now entirely under the control of all the different police forces that are here. This is really the only block right now where you're going to see this kind of confrontation in downtown Ottawa, and people have just gravitated here, it seems. It's kind of got the atmosphere of a dance party. You can probably hear the music playing in the background there. And there's a crowd of about 400 to 500 people probably on this block. All of Spark Street has similar lines of riot police blocking the intersections. They're carrying batons, they're wearing helmets, they don't have shields, but they certainly do look different from the way they looked yesterday, and that was a decision that was taken by Ottawa Police to change their posture and harden it a little bit after yesterday. And that's what we're seeing right now. It's an area of only about a block and a half square, which probably contains in it right now most of the protesters remaining in the downtown core of Ottawa. And they've just come here because this appears to be the last place where the action is really occurring.
And they are there gathering in spite of the fact that 170 people have been arrested, and in spite of the fact, Evan, that they have been told if they stay, they will be arrested. Does there seem to be any further movement by police tonight, or are they just sort of holding their ground and letting things unfold?
I don't think we've necessarily seen the end of the movement. I think right now there's really nothing serious that the Ottawa Police or any other police force that's here would be concerned with, in the sense that they would have to stop it urgently. So what's happening here right now is sort of, it's not obstructing traffic really, it's not causing any major disturbance. So what we've seen is that the police are quite patient in their approach. You know, they'll advance a half block at a time, or even sometimes just a few steps at a time. And we haven't seen any movement at this particular intersection for quite a while, and I think that's one of the reasons why so many people have come here. Certainly, you know, looking around, there are things going on this block that we know that the Emergency Act is concerned with, that the police have said that they want to prevent. For example, there's a child of about 6 or 7 years old. We're not going to film her, but she's standing about 8 feet away from me right now. We saw a father with a much younger child, probably only 2 or 3 years old, pulling him in a little sled right through the middle of this scene. So it's not that this is not an issue for law enforcement, but it's much less of an issue than some of the things that we've seen happening before. And police seem to feel like the situation is contained and under control, and that's why for the last few hours, we've really seen very little movement of the kind that we saw earlier in the day. Earlier in the day, we saw police advancing block by block, or half block at a time. And first clearing Wellington, which is the second street from here. You can see there's a lit up building over there. That's the parliamentary compound where the big trucks were. That was cleared earlier in the day. And then Spark Street, which is a pedestrian street that never had trucks on it, was cleared after. But all over downtown today, we've seen the departure of vehicles. And I think it's fair to say, although it's hard to make a really accurate estimate because the crowd is so spread out, or was so spread out, I think we're also seeing fewer people, even though these pictures that we're shooting right now might not give that impression.
Okay. Evan Dyer, he is right there in the thick of things, really where the largest number of protesters remain at this hour, converging there. Evan Dyer, we will come back to you. Thank you for your help. We should tell you that 53 vehicles have been towed over the course of this police operation. That does not include, obviously, people who got the message and decided to leave voluntarily, and many of them did. We should also tell you that today the federal government confirmed that there were many accounts, personal accounts, financial accounts that were frozen as part of the Emergencies Act. They say 76 accounts in total. Those could be corporate or individual accounts, representing $3.2 million. That was part of the government's attempt to choke off the financial support that much of this protest was getting. We'll talk more with Marco Mendocino shortly in the show about that. Let's go back now to the streets of Ottawa. The CBC's Thomas Degla has also been out there through the course of the day, seeing this action. You're on Wellington Street right now. Tell us what it looks like compared to what it was earlier today when you were there, Thomas.
Yeah, Rosemary, this is sort of the epicenter of what people have seen over the past 3 weeks in terms of the visible protest here just near the Parliament buildings. There are virtually no trucks or any vehicles from the protesters still parked here on Wellington, where you will have seen the bouncy castles, the stage, the entertainment that angered so many of the local neighbors here over the past 3 weeks. And you still see tents set up that are all going to have to be cleared out in the coming hours. But this is just to give you a sense of how entrenched these protesters were. They had hay bales set up here. They had snow clearing equipment, and we're being told by police now that we can't be here. But as you can see, they were very much entrenched here, and this has all been cleared out now. And those tents that are remaining, all the equipment that protesters had set up to be able to, in some cases, stay here around the clock, that is being cleared out as well. Rosemary.
Yeah, I think police were worried you were going to entrench yourself there because you've been working so hard, Thomas. Tell us how the day unfolded, because I know you were close to the police line as they were pushing people up that street. Give us a sense of what that was like and what the protesters' response was to it as well.
Yeah, we began the day near the Chateau Laurier down the street from where we're standing right now, and just around, gosh, it must have been 8 or 9 o'clock this morning, police started pushing protesters back very, very fast, gaining sort of a half a block at a time, and this was a very quick operation compared to what we saw yesterday. What really struck me, we're being told to move now. Yeah, thank you. Well, there you go. Here we go. We will keep moving. This is what police have been doing, and when I say when they see anyone here in the street, on the sidewalk, in this secured zone that they've cleared out, they keep moving protesters back, and indeed now they're not even letting the media around Wellington Street. But that has been the operation, a very quick succession of pushbacks from police to where we see them now. Let's maybe just stop here for a second.
I want you to get in trouble from the police because you've managed to stay out of trouble all day. So, Thomas, we will come back to you as we can. Thank you so much for showing us what that clear street is now, Wellington, right in front of West Block, where that critical debate around the Emergencies Act is happening, probably all the way till midnight tonight, starting again tomorrow morning. As we watch police enforcement happening near Parliament in Ottawa, as I said, inside that West Block, that the debate of that Emergencies Act is happening still. The vote to take place tomorrow. The government had 7 days for the debate to take place and for the vote to happen. Once you invoke the Emergencies Act, Sorry, the vote is happening on Monday. Once you invoke the Emergencies Act as cabinet, it is in force immediately, but there is still a vote on it. The NDP have indicated they will support the government for now in the use of the Emergencies Act, so it is expected to pass, and the government has made it very clear that they will only keep it in place as long as is necessary, though there is a time, an expiry date of 30 days. You are looking now at live pictures here in the nation's capital at the area that remains of what was a 3-week blockade and truck convoy that held up much of the downtown space inside Ottawa. The police have spent the past 48 hours or so clearing out not only that street where Thomas Degla was in front of Parliament Hill, but also many streets around it, pushing back supporters, clearing out trucks, and then setting up gates and blockades in order to prevent them from going any further. It is dark still tonight. It is very cold in the nation's capital, but many protesters remain there on Bank Street. Let's go now to the Mayor of Ottawa, Jim Watson, who has been trying to manage the situation from the beginning and watching the day's events unfold. Mayor, nice to see you this evening.
Thank you for the invitation, Rosemary.
So what do you make of how far the police have managed to get today?
Well, they've done a remarkable job both last night and today. As you pointed out, they've got Wellington Street cleaned up. Most of the trucks have been towed away. And I now just got word that the Sir Johnny Macdonald Parkway, most of the trucks are removed from that section in the west end of the city as well. So they've made a lot of progress. They've been very measured in the response. It's a really tough assignment for police officers, getting yelled at and spat upon, but they have been calm and cool and collective. And we owe a debt of gratitude to all those municipal forces that have come in from across Canada, as well as the OPP and the RCMP. That was most of my activity over the last week, was to get those extra resources by working with ministers and the Premier and the Prime Minister. And we're grateful because the last 2 days have proven that we did need those resources to bring some calm and stability back to our city.
There has been, for people that maybe don't understand, a lot of local businesses impacted by this, large malls, large restaurants, but also smaller businesses who have had to remain closed for almost 3 weeks because of the intimidation factor. There were people trying to go into businesses without masks. Today, the federal government announced $20 million for some of those businesses to pay for damages and the fact that they were closed for so long. How significant is that, and what have you been hearing from some of those businesses about the hit they've taken?
Well, many of these businesses have gone out of business. They had to deal first with COVID for 2 years and the many lockdowns. And for all intents and purposes, over the last 4 weeks, they've been in a lockdown imposed by these hooligans and thugs that came here to disrupt our city. So some of them have gone out of business. I'm very grateful to Mona Fortier and Yasser Naqvi, the two MPs that have been working on this project. Their communities were hardest hit as a result of the blockades and the traffic stall-ups and parking everywhere and the rude behavior going into stores, pulling people's masks off. There was a case where some people tried to handcuff the doors of an apartment building, and then another building, someone threw a firebomb in it. Unbelievable what the residents have had to put up with. And my message to those people you're showing right now who are still out there: go home. You've had your more than 15 minutes of fame. You've disrupted our city. You've hurt our small business community, and this is costing a small fortune for the taxpayers of Ottawa. And that's one of the reasons why, under the Emergency Act, I've asked our solicitor and our city manager, how can we keep the tow trucks and the campers and the vans and everything else that we've confiscated and sell those pieces of equipment to help recoup some of the costs that our taxpayers are absorbing. So that's one of the provisions of the Emergency Act. And we have been a beneficiary of the Emergency Act. As they debated on the Hill, I asked the members of Parliament to consider. It's helped us a lot on things like confiscating vehicles, not having to swear in peace officers to the RCMP, and so many other things that have been very helpful over the course of this period, including you can't be under 18 and be in this rally. It's just unbelievable that parents are bringing their kids to this. This is not settled yet, as you see on Spark Street. I think that's Spark Street. It's not settled yet. There's still work to do, and there's still some diehards, but we've come a long way in 2 days. This should have been done 3 weeks ago.
It's actually Bank and Sparks. You're seeing the protesters there on Bank Street. It's dark, so it's hard to see sort of where we are. Just one last question. You said this was evidence you needed the Emergencies Act, Mayor, but the reason the Emergencies Act was needed because there seemed to be a complete failure by Ottawa Police Services to do their job, and many citizens of Ottawa would say that you also failed to do yours. What would you say to them about why you didn't act sooner?
Well, we did. We started asking the federal and provincial government for support, and it's ramped up very slowly, but it was not fast enough. We put in a request for 1,800 officers. We needed to get that number or close to that number to help bring stability to the situation.
Yeah, but my question, Mayor, is do you think there are things that you could have done better or differently, or do you have regrets about the way that you handled this?
Well, I have many regrets, and I take responsibility as mayor of the city of Ottawa for everything that went wrong with this operation, for the simple reason that, how did these trucks manage to escape all of the different intelligence channels to get to our city, go down a street that is not a truck route, park on that street, and our officials not knowing that they were going to be there for a long period of time, not just a day or two. Yep. So there was a complete failure, and that's why two of my colleagues on council, Councillors Hubling and Tierney, brought forward a motion that was approved unanimously that we have a full independent review of our actions and, more importantly, our inactions, and take responsibility for that for two reasons. And the feds have to do one as well after the Emergency Act. Yep. But for two reasons. One, the public deserve to know why this was poorly executed from the start, although the last 2 days have been a redemption, really, and I commend the police. And secondly, how do we prevent this from happening again? Because we get copycats and people will think, hey, I'm going down to Parliament Hill and parking there for 3 or 4 days and having a big roast and everything else under the sun. We have to prevent that. We need a short-term plan to blockade Wellington, a longer-term plan on how we protect our residents much better than we have in the last 4 weeks.
Mayor, I got to leave it there. Thank you for making the time for us. We do appreciate it, sir. Bye-bye.
My pleasure. For asking.
David Common has been following the police action that you can see there on your screen. He's been following it through the day. He's at Bank and Queen, I believe. David, give us a sense. It is dark, so it's hard to see everything, including you, but give us a sense of what you're seeing right now.
Yeah, absolutely, Rosie. Ballparking, I'd say 300 or 400 people, protesters still remaining in this one city block. And it is it's a jovial atmosphere. Let us remember the way in which this started 3 weeks ago. As you look deeper into the crowd there, these are people who have found commonalities with people from various areas right across Ontario, indeed right across the country. They found community, and in so doing, they found happiness, and that's what it is, very much a party atmosphere down in this one city block. But it is very much a different kind of city tonight in terms of what it looks like. Yes, a lot of people still in this one area, but there are vast areas where there were people, trucks, support structures, you name it, this morning that aren't there anymore. Just blocks, like blocks on either side of us. The police are installing or have installed large barricades, fencing that would actually block people from trying to get in. Now, as we look ahead to what happens next, I think we're kind of in sort of a holding pattern now for much of the rest of the night, if things transpire as they did last night, and that was that, yes, there were people out on the streets until very late in the evening. The numbers dwindled into the early morning hours, and that's when police moved. And perhaps we will see the same sort of thing again tomorrow morning, as police, by the hundreds or however many are here from forces across the country, get rested up and get ready to move again. But you do see a large number of people that are still out here in the crowd and very happy to be here.
Okay, David Common there out on Bank Street at the largest site now of the protest. Thanks for that, David. We'll come back to you. As we watch the police enforcement continuing to happen near Parliament Hill in Ottawa, as we've been talking about that key debate inside the West Block, the House of Commons, happening on the use of the Emergencies Act. The government took an unprecedented step in invoking that act at the beginning of last week, introducing temporary measures to address the blockades and protests. Some, including the Conservatives, say those powers are unnecessary and an overreach. The Minister of Public Safety is here now on how that debate is playing out. Marco Mendocino, nice to see you this evening.
Thank you very much for having me, Rosie.
First, tell me what you make of what we're witnessing here in Ottawa over the course of the day. 170 arrests and many vehicles towed or have left of their own volition.
Well, I think in short, we're seeing progress. We're seeing significant progress, and we're seeing that progress accelerate over the course of the last day. As you pointed out, 170 arrests. I think the overall footprint of the blockade is shrinking, and that is a testament to the good work that is being done by various law enforcement from across the country. By and large, use of force has been limited. It's been proportionate. I think it's extremely important that we recognize that the situation is still fluid. The job is not yet done. You've got people out there that are covering it in real time. I hope they're staying safe. But I also think that that fluidity, not only in Ottawa, but equally at other ports of entry, for example, in South Surrey, BC right now, where there is an ongoing effort to blockade that port of entry, really recognizes why the Emergencies Act continues to be a necessity, something that the interim chief of the Ottawa Police Service, Bell, articulated very clearly, and as others have. So we're in the middle of a debate. It's important that we're transparent about how we're using those powers, but we still need it.
So the Emergencies Act was invoked not just to deal with this situation, but situations as they unfold. And I guess if that's the case, then at what point do you know that you've sort of quashed the protest movement and you don't need it anymore, given the Emergencies Act only is in place for 30 days?
Well, I think that is a vitally important question, and at the very top of our thinking on it, we have to follow the advice that we're getting from law enforcement, and that's why we'll look to the commissioner of the RCMP, the commissioner of the OPP, the chief of police for the Ottawa Police Service, to make sure that we get the best assessment about their ongoing need to use the tools that have been carved out for them under the Emergencies Act. And I'll just say that very tangibly, the ability to state without any ambiguity that certain areas adjacent to our national symbols like Parliament or ports of entry are an effective way to send a clear message to public to stay away, and where they don't, to enforce. Likewise, we've been able to use tools under the Emergencies Act to rapidly deploy RCMP personnel who are right now doing incredible work on the scene here in Ottawa. And that is another way. Of course, the financial controls as well are a powerful disincentive and a message to those who may be trying to aid and abet the illegal blockade that now is the time to stop. And so as long as these tools are being advised by our law enforcement as being effective and useful towards ending the illegal blockades, we will use them. But we also recognize that there are important safeguards, like the Charter, like sunsetting. And that's why the debate that's playing out in Parliament is also important, so that we can be upfront with Canadians, transparent and accountable to Canadians, because no one wants to use this act any longer than we have to.
You know, many of your critics, particularly inside the Conservative Party, I should point out, we asked someone from the Conservative caucus to appear tonight and no one was made available, but they would say that this is overreach. They also say that it's an overreaction to people who don't like what you say and don't like your government, and that using the Emergencies Act to deal with this could suggest that the government is not willing to hear different opinions. What do you say to that, Minister?
Well, I've listened very carefully to those arguments, and I'll just point out that I think now is the time in the chamber, in the House of Commons, to be having a reasonable, principled debate, to be listening to one another, because I think that's one of the great values of our Canadian democracy, and perhaps we need it now more than ever. But I say, with respect to those Conservatives who are making those arguments, do not conflate reasonable, legitimate, and vigorous debate around the strategy to get out of the pandemic with what has been going on in Ottawa and at our official ports of entry, which has crippled the economy. That's illegal. And we need to draw a bright line between those two separate concepts. I would also say that if you don't want to take it from the government, then at a minimum, take it from the very experienced frontline and executive officers of the police, who are saying that the Emergencies Act is an effective tool. And to put it very bluntly, the words of Interim Chief Bell yesterday, he said, and I quote, "We couldn't be doing the job that we're doing right now in Ottawa unless we had the Emergencies Act."
I'll just point out that tonight, earlier tonight, the Premier of Alberta, Jason Kenney, said that he will launch a court challenge against the use of the Emergencies Act. He has said that he doesn't think it was needed in this case, although he did have his own issue at Coutts, Alberta, that was dealt with by the RCMP. You are facing other legal challenges around this. Are you confident that you can fight them and win and make the case that this was what was needed?
Well, first, I've been in touch with Premier Kenney, as many of us within government. You heard that the Prime Minister convened an important First Minister's call as part of the consultative process prior to invoking the Emergencies Act, and we're going to continue to work very closely with all of our provincial and territorial partners. I want to stress that the very specific and circumscribed tools that we have put in the Emergencies Act as part of the declaration are meant to work in concert with existing provincial authorities. And so I just, it is important that people understand that this is meant to be a compatible tool, not to operate in conflict, but rather in concert with those authorities. And look, I think to a certain extent, the discussion around this, Rosie, and the vigorous debate that is flowing from the invocation is natural. This is the first time that we have invoked the Emergencies Act, and it is important that we are transparent, and that's why the debate is an important part of this.
Last question, Minister. You said today that 76 accounts have been frozen under this, representing $3.2 million. Does that money ever go back to the people who have it, or does the government claim it? What happens to that $3.2 million? Could you use it, for instance, to pay the city for what it has had to incur in costs?
Well, I know certainly Mayor Watson may have some views about that, as do other perhaps municipal leaders right across the country. But the operationalization of the tools that we have given to law enforcement lies in their hands, but it has to be very much guided by the principles in the Charter, including Section 8, which protects people from an unreasonable search and seizure, and by extension, forfeiture. So we trust our law enforcement and the financial institutions who are cooperating with them around these financial controls to implement the Emergencies Act in a way that is responsible, proportionate, time-limited, and consistent with the Charter.
Minister Mendicino, thank you for making the time this evening. I know you've had a long day. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Rosie.
And again, we did ask to hear from a Conservative member of Parliament about the use of the Emergencies Act, but none was made available. On your screen there on the right, you're looking at Wellington Street, right in front of Parliament Hill. It is clear at this hour of hundreds of protesters that had taken over control of that street, and dozens of big rigs, semi-trailers that were in front as well. Police managing to clear out protesters, and tow trucks have come in now and brought the trucks out as well. There is a secure perimeter right around the parliamentary precinct at this hour after a couple of days of police enforcement. Let's go to Ashley Burke. She's on Spark Street right now, which is very near the CBC, and it is quiet out there right now, Ashley. Sort of.
Rosie, this is one of the areas that police reclaimed. And you can just, a block from me is where the police line is. And there's a lot of action going down there. We can hear the music. But where we are, it is quiet. Just take a look around here. There is no one here but us and police. And we're actually told that this is our last hit here because we are in the secure zone and police want us out of here. We're in this fenced-in area that we showed you earlier, just ahead. And this is one of the spots that they have blocked off so that protesters could not get back in this area. There's been 170 arrests so far. We're still waiting to find out how many of those individuals have been charged. That's a question that was put to Ottawa's interim police chief today, and he didn't have a number specifically for us because we are hearing from some demonstrators that there have been arrests and not charges laid. Now, some of the things we saw today that was new from yesterday, we saw police wearing helmets with batons in their hands. We saw use of pepper spray on some of the demonstrators. People were coming out of the crowd one after another where we were just down the street here earlier today, and they had bottles of water they were pouring in their eyes. Some of them had their face in the snowbank, throwing snow in their eyes, and there was a lot of criticism from those protesters about some of the methods that police were using today. But the Ottawa's interim police chief defended it and said, look, we have been telling you for days to leave this area, that it's not safe. And what did you think was going to happen? In order for us to regain control of the streets, we are going to have to escalate things. So really a defense there. Police also said that they saw that there were canisters of gas thrown at police officers and they arrested people with cans of gas, with fireworks in their bag. We also heard firecrackers used earlier tonight on the street just behind me. So those are some of the things we've seen today, including those police horses that were used as a reinforcement line to kind of push police up and forward. So just some of the things we've been seeing today, and kind of interesting. There have been questions to the interim police chief about why there's police officers walking around recording on video cameras, also recording with a drone above it most of the time. And they said that is because they are going to be opening further investigations, tracking down some of those faces and charging people, even if they have left this demonstration. This will not be the end of the charges to come, they said.
Yeah, and police certainly watching all the live streams that protesters have been providing for them as well. Ashley Burke, thank you so much. Ashley Burke inside the red zone that police have secured tonight. I want to show you another shot, though, that we haven't been able to show you before now. This is Coventry Road in Ottawa, which will mean very little to you if you don't live here, but it has been set up as sort of a base camp for the protest. A supply chain was established there. There were saunas set up there, and there were people who were providing support, equipment, food, all those kinds of things to the protest that was located here downtown in Ottawa. As you can see, it has cleared out in a really substantial way. That parking lot was completely full just even 3 days ago when I went past it myself. So the action is taking place certainly in the downtown core, and either the message is getting to other protesters that it is time to leave, or police have encouraged them to leave from that space as well. A group of Ottawa residents and business owners filed a class action lawsuit against the protesters occupying the nation's capital. Many people have signed on at this point. Ivan Geddes is one of the plaintiffs in that lawsuit. We're looking at Bank Street there, where the mass of protesters is sort of located right now. This is the only location they're in. Ivan's the owner of a local Ottawa restaurant, Union Local 613. Ivan, good to see you tonight.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So what are you, you're watching things unfold, and how are you feeling as someone who lives in this city?
I can only amplify what other guests have said, that we're just happy something's finally happening. You know, when the first weekend, when the convoy rolled in, it was something akin to a mashup between a Mad Max and Duck Dynasty convention. I walked around the street as a white male. I was able to do so freely, and the tension on the street was palpable. So not to be hyperbolic and continue with what our guests have said, but it's gone on far too long. So we're just happy something's happening.
And how did it affect your business, your restaurant? I mean, obviously, I guess, I don't know if it was closed or if people would even venture out, would want to be near that area right now.
Yeah, so we have comparables because we've gone to half capacity before this, and this was markedly different. We were down probably 25 to 50% on any given day compared to what we were previously. And we had firsthand communication with regards to guests saying when they canceled their reservations, the reason they weren't coming was because of what was going on downtown. So it's drastically affected our business. Mm. We joined the lawsuit upon request from the legal team because we are A, in the encatchment area, but B, there are a lot of other restaurants closer to the downtown core that have been severely more affected than us. But for whatever reason, whether they be marginalized due to race or sexual orientation or just scared in general, we're uncomfortable being the face of this. And we were inspired by Zexi Lee. We were inspired by the grannies who are just, I'm in a condo here on Cooper Street, just right beside my restaurant where I live. The grannies on the street who stopped the truckers. And we said, jeepers, you know, if we can add something to this, if we can be the face of that and perhaps take a little deflection away from Zexi, because make no mistake, she's a Canadian hero and deserves all of our plaudits, that we were more than happy to do so. And hopefully this will be an example, or at least maybe allow other restaurants who have been hurting even worse than us to join this class action lawsuit.
Okay, Ivan, and Zexi Lee is the lead plaintiff. She appeared on CBC News Network earlier today, and she's faced a lot of backlash, so I'm sure she appreciates your support and the support of others. Ivan, I hope things keep quiet and settle down for you and your business in the days ahead. Thank you so much for your time.
I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
We're looking there live at a shot of Bank Street. We have been bringing you this special coverage of the police action in the nation's capital. 170 people have been arrested to date. That is the update that police gave us. And as we've been showing you, there has been a tremendous and overwhelming amount of police action and enforcement over the course of the day, starting yesterday, moving slowly and deliberately into the space in front of Parliament Hill, and now securing a large red zone, a secured zone inside the downtown core of Ottawa. We've been able to show you the people, that is the secured zone, now that the police have cordoned off, pushing protesters back behind barricades, and making sure too that vehicles have been towed out as well. Police telling us 53 vehicles in total are gone, and license plates taken off some of them. Other trucks have left of their own accord after police have warned people that they would be arrested and that their vehicles, which for many people could be their livelihoods, would also be seized. This is Bank Street in the downtown of Ottawa. So to the left of your screen would be Wellington, the street that had been predominantly, closed. There it is now, closed by the protest. It is, as you can see there, clear now. Just some police vehicles and tow trucks in that location. If we go back to the other shot, that is at the other end, the far end of Wellington, as you turn down Bank Street, Bank and Queen. And yes, there are hundreds of protesters who have gathered, converged there, but those protesters are limited in terms of where they can go. And for now, police seem to be just maintaining the perimeter and not going in to enforce further. Thank you so much for watching our special coverage of the ongoing police action in Ottawa. CBC News Network will have continuing coverage just ahead with Andrew Nichols. For those of you on CBC Television, our Olympic coverage will continue. My thanks to the incredible team of our reporters and others, producers and cameramen who have been working so hard in difficult conditions. I'll be back tomorrow with more on this story on Rosemary Barton Live at 10 a.m. Eastern on CBC News Network. I'm Rosemary Barton here in the nation's capital. Thank you so much for watching. Take good care.